Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's edition of the Sunday Wire. I'm your host, Patrick Henningsen. We're streaming out live on the Alternate Current Radio Network and also at 21stCenturyWire.com, and also live on X, on YouTube, on Rumble, and also on Facebook. Even with the limited reach we're allowed on that platform, we're still streaming out anyway to hopefully save some souls there on Meta. But thank you for joining us. This is episode 506 of this weekly omnibus news and analysis radio program, again brought to you here on ACR. We have a really powerful episode lined up for you today. Very pleased. We'll be joined in a few minutes by an incredible guest. He's a journalist who has been covering the Bilderberg Meeting, the global confab, for a very long time. We're very pleased he's able to join us right now from Madrid, Spain. His name is Charlie Skelton. We'll bring him onto the stage in just a moment, but we will be covering some of the big breaking news that's been happening over this last week. Obviously, a lot has gone on the U.S. side with the Trump verdict. That's created a whole uproar in the United States. And at the same time, we have unprecedented provocations from the United States and NATO against Russia. That broke as well. That was leaked to Politico that Joe Biden had given the green light, secretly given the green light for Ukraine to attack targets deep within Russia with U.S. weapons. That's a game changer. And there's a whole other component of this that is even more disturbing, and that's that Ukraine is targeting early warning radar systems that Russia has, nuclear radar systems, early warning nuclear radar systems inside Russia. I don't need to spell this out to some of our intelligent members of the audience of what that signals and what that means going forward. So while all this is happening, the great and the good, the global elites are meeting right now in Madrid, Spain this past week. And we're great to be able to bring up onto the stage a journalist who is no stranger to the Bilderberg confab. His name is Charlie Skelton, who's joining us on the live link right now. Charlie, thank you for coming.
Well, it's lovely to be here in beautiful sunny Madrid.
Yeah, thank you. And I like the on location feel as well.
Yeah.
That's certainly novel. So Charlie, you got a little bit of lager froth there.
So I do. Thank you.
So how is the beer, by the way, in Spain?
It's nice. It's good. Yeah, everything's good. The food is delightful, and the police have been all right to me, but not to some people. We had a couple of journalists that were given a grilling in this restaurant that I'm in outside now by 4 plainclothes policemen, and they left in distress back to Holland. So ups and downs, but I've had it pretty good myself. It's been fine.
So this isn't your first rodeo, Charlie, when it comes to the Bilderberg Group. For those people who aren't familiar with you and your work, take us back a little bit. How did you first get exposed? How did you first come to discover Bilderberg? And tell us a little bit about the coverage that you've been able to do in over the years.
Well, it's been a long time, hasn't it? My goodness. So 2009, I went along to Meeting in Greece, and kind of as a joke, I sort of thought it was a funny thing to do, and I just pitched it to the Guardian as that, and just went, look, this would be funny. Go along to this crazy meeting. Who knows if it even exists? And I went, and this was back in the day. There was no information about it whatsoever, except one tiny chat on a internet forum, and that said. So it was pretty much like I think it might be in Meeting in Greece. And I went, all right, fine, okay, I'll do that. So I got on a flight, went there. And I remember sort of thinking, oh, this is fun. I'm in a kind of like spy film or something, and looking around over my shoulder and thinking, gosh, is anyone following me? Oh yeah, and sure enough, like give it a few hours, and they really were. And I went from thinking, oh, this is fun, to, oh my God, this is the worst experience of my life. And it was unbelievably stressful. They gave me an incredibly hard time. I was constantly detained, and that was my first rodeo, and it was an absolute drop in the deep end. And it was pretty horrible there. And I just left after a while. I just said, I'm leaving Bilderberg Meeting, I left and went to Athens, which is like 20 minutes away or whatever it was, a lot further. And they followed me there, and they just followed me around Athens. And I looked out of my hotel, out of the hotel lobby, and there was a row of plainclothes policemen just staring at me from outside. It was totally insane. I ended up trying to go to the embassy in Athens, and just because I just was so freaked out by the whole thing, and it was closed. And which I thought, I kind of had this vision of like, come in, have a cup of tea, and it was just a voice going on the intercom outside, going, no, you come back on Monday morning. So anyway, things have got better in some ways, worse in others. They still, I'm still trying to write about this thing. It's not the easiest thing in the world to write about, because they don't exactly say very much about themselves, and I guess fine at some level, but it's frustrating. And after 2009, then it was Spain, so it's 2010, and then it started to build up then, because wasn't many people back in 2009, and it started to be more people, more journalists. And in Watford in 2013, there was quite a big protest festival. There's thousands of people there, and that was incredible. And and over the years I've tried to do some analysis of the conference, trying to be, making the odd joke, but trying to be serious about it, because the mainstream media sort of don't know how to talk about it. They really don't. I almost feel sorry for them. They just don't. And there's a few. It's almost got a bit better now, where they just, if anyone does any articles, they don't really. But there's two articles, one in the Irish Times, one in CNBC, and they're kind of just general little, quite bland descriptions of the situation, which is fine. But for years it was just like, what is the Bilderberg group? They would ask, and then they would just say, is it lizards? Some say so, and then they would just laugh it off, even though their politicians are in there with lobbyists and high financiers and bank CEOs and defense company CEOs, etc., and locked away for this long period of time, far longer than anyone goes to. Traditionally the Secretary General of NATO goes, and he goes for longer to Bilderberg than he does to the NATO conference, the annual NATO conference, which is like one night. Usually, he's staying here like 3 nights or something. You know what I mean? It's like it's a bigger event in the head of NATO's calendar than the NATO conference. So you can make of that what you will.
So how would you describe Bilderberg in a nutshell? I think it's easier to kind of talk about it now, because the WEF, the World Economic Forum, Davos, has been really scrutinized in recent years, and so people are kind of, even mainstream journalists are kind of used to discussing these confabs, almost accepting elite gatherings now more than they did before. How would you encapsulate this meeting if you were to kind of in a nutshell?
Well, I described it in the piece I wrote just now for The Guardian as the kind of boardroom of the transatlantic alliance. So it's kind of like the brain of the transatlantic alliance, where NATO is the kind of fist of it, or whatever that would be. It's where the sort of the strategy gets talked about with key players. It's a very intense conference. I know that we've spoken to people that have not enjoyed it, that have been invited along, participants, and that have found it too much. I remember speaking to some guy in Copenhagen. He was actually, no, I didn't speak to him, but I spoke to the people that spoke to him. He was out jogging, and he didn't want to go back in. He was just like loitering outside. And he ran a massive Norwegian energy company, right? And he was just like outside going, oh God, because the actual conference was so stressful for him as a top businessman. So yeah, it's an intense hothouse kind of series of debates on a series of big geopolitical issues, and they published the list later and later. They published it today, mid-morning, and so they put that. It's you can do a certain amount of analysis of that list and cross-refer it to the participant list and see who's been invited, who's coming, and so yeah, that's. And this year, it's a lot of very, very senior politicians. We weren't expecting them, but then they turned up. So there's 2 prime ministers there. There's 4 EU commissioners. There's a bunch of finance ministers and foreign ministers, and the head of the Eurogroup, which is the head of Pascal Donohoe, which is the group of EU finance ministers. So a lot of big policymakers there. The president of Finland, and also from the US, a lot of the sort of Biden administration security officials. So people from the National Security Council, senior members of the senior security and cybersecurity members. So it's a fairly, as usual, it's a fairly heady mix of people, and they resolutely keep those discussions, which involve all of these public officials, keep them under wraps.
So that's the thing that's interesting about Bilderberg is the guest list. I mean, so this year, I guess 100 on paper, 131 guests from 20 odd countries, 21 countries. That wasn't made public until really recently, in terms of how long the Bilderberg meeting has been going, since the early mid 50s. Yeah. It's always been secret. And then it's been leaked via a couple of intrepid journalists, Jim Tucker from American Free Press being one of the early ones, who you met and who you knew as well. But then they started making their guest list public. So that was kind of coming out of Bilderberg. And I'm not sure which year they did that, but did they do that to diffuse a little bit of the pressure that was building because of the work, your work and other people's work to expose this?
I think so. I think they obviously kind of thought we have to have some presence in the world. So they went online with a website. I think it was during this 2010 Spanish meeting, where they just kind of went, "Oh, we've got to have to kind of come out of the shadows a little bit." And so now they do, they have a press contact, and I have my ups and downs with Zander, the Bilderberg press contact, and we have a dialogue, and there is a little bit more openness, but not much, and they do the kind of bare minimum, because they couldn't really continue into the modern world as they were. It would have been simply too secret. They had to at least look like they were a kind of discreet yet modern and serious organization. And I think it's not enough what they do. Obviously, I think that, and I think it's a great shame that the mainstream media hasn't found a way of putting it on their diary, because you see it's on a lot of people's diaries, it's on a lot of politicians' diaries, and these people that run banks, Deutsche Bank or Banco Santander, the host of this meeting runs a massive European bank, and they find the time to take this, to clear their diaries, come here for 4 days and take this whole thing seriously. And I slightly, not despair, but I'm just sort of sad that the mainstream hasn't managed to to find a way of discussing it and find a way of analysing it and of putting pressure on them and just turning up and saying and asking questions. Because if they don't do that, they won't. Nothing much will change, I don't think. And so it's slightly in a catch-22. And there's some great, alternative. I don't know what they would call themselves, journalists, citizen journalists, and podcasters here. Like Dan Dix is here, Press for Truth, and he's been, a number of years, and there's lots of there are people here, but it's not enough.
I think especially with everything that's going on right now in the world, we're at the precipice of potentially World War III. I don't think that's hyperbolic to make that statement right now. So with all that going on, and what you've been able to do very well over the years, Charlie and others, is to look at the guest list, then to look at what interests the countries, the industries, the sections of industries, and then try from that, and then what information you can glean from inside the conference, work out what the agenda is, because it seems like, I know you've made this statement before, that Bilderberg's kind of a consensus building confab, which happens annually. It's almost like this is the direction the transatlantic bloc, the Atlanticist bloc, is heading for the next 12 months. Are you on board with this? You've got Alex Karp there from Palantir. They're playing a major role in defense, plus on the censorship industrial complex as well, data mining and so forth, big data. You've got the banking sector. You've got big industry there, but you got a lot since 2012, 2011. Big tech has moved into the key steering committee positions with Eric Schmidt, formerly of Google, Alphabet. So you've been able to do that. So looking at the playing field this year, what do you think the focus is for this meeting? What do you think some of the points are?
Well, two things I'd just like to say from what you said. I want to mention Peter Thiel as well, because he's the biggest shareholder of Palantir, and he's kind of Alex Karp's mentor, and clearly he brought Alex Karp into the Bilderberg inner circle, and they're all, you often see them going out for a little stroll with their bodyguards. I think it's Alex Karp's bodyguards, I have to be honest, but I'm not surprised he has bodyguards, to be honest. Anyway, so to go backwards, and one of the key things that it does is it's a place where, as you say, if you fit in with Bilderberg and you make a good impression and you say the right things in the debates, you can get invited back, and then you sort of just enter into this kind of slightly heady circle of job opportunities. And you look at some of those people like is it Brenda Borger, the guy who was president of the WEF, who's on the board of Bilderberg, and he's looking to take over from Klaus Schwab. And there's lots of, you often see people kind of come into the group and then get appointed to, IMF jobs or the European Central Bank, or, some of the big sort of public sector jobs and big policy jobs. And so partly it functions like that. And so we've seen over the years, as you're saying, Bilderberg embraced the kind of Silicon Valley crew, and Craig Mundie from Microsoft was the first one on the board, and but now it's packed with them. It's Eric Schmidt's there, and and Peter Thiel, and they this year they've brought in. They're putting 2 sessions on AI. It's like they're saying, they're putting the message out saying that we really are all in on AI. And again, I think that's a smart move by Bilderberg. They didn't just sit there, playing a game of Risk and thinking, what are the geopolitical machinations. They're going, okay, AI is in everything we do now, and it's in everything they do and in their discussions. And and you look at they're talking this year about the changing faces of biology and stuff like that, and that's to do with tech. So they're very, for a bunch of old fogies or whatever you'd think they are, which they're not, because they've got that slight reputation. They're pretty switched on, and they're because their existential survival depends on them staying at the cutting edge of power as a group. They can't just sit and have a glass of wine and talk about the Cold War. They have to get on and keep pushing on and keep pushing on, and they bring people into the steering committee, not for a while, but the last one in was tellingly was the CEO of Microsoft. So they're changing, they're adapting, and they are trying to stay relevant. And so one of their topics this year is the future of warfare, and I think it was Eric Schmidt wrote a few months ago. He said the future of warfare is drones, and they've got the guy there from, I'm going to forget the name of the arms company, the guy who invented the Oculus VR, who's now decided to go.
Palmer Luckey.
Yes. Yeah.
Palmer
Cool
Luckey,
name.
which was acquired to great wealth on his part by Meta.
That's right.
Yeah. So
he's now gone into defense. They all seem to, they all just go, all these tech guys just go, oh, well, they must just follow the money. They must just go, oh, yeah, I'll tell you what, I guess I'll have a massive Pentagon contract. That would be nice. So, yeah, and he seemed to mildly insane in a kind of Bilderberg friendly way, just I think they kind of like people who are just a bit, bit wild-eyed, like Alex Karp. I mean, the fact that he's fitted in so well to Bilderberg is says a lot for their tolerance for insanity.
Well, that's a pretty interesting convergence of AI and defense and the future of warfare. So some of the things that you've been tweeting out here, Charlie, on X, Bilderberg agenda list is out. Comforting to know the Allied Supreme Commander of Europe, Secretary General of NATO, and the U.S. Deputy National Security Advisor will be there thrashing out the future of warfare. Key topics for discussion: the state of AI safety, changing faces of biology, climate. There's climate in there as well. I don't know if that's climate change or manipulating the weather. That's up for speculation. The future of warfare, geopolitics, and Middle East, China, and Russia. What's interesting, Charlie, about Bilderberg is that they talk about China and Russia, but you don't see any representatives from China and Russia at this meeting. It's pretty much U.S., British, European, and with a few sprinklings of, let's say, token representatives from a few countries, maybe a few Japanese. Is that generally the case?
No, they would be at the Trilateral Commission, but no, the Chinese were invited, I think, 1 year. I'm going to get this wrong, and I'm sorry if I do. I think it was to San Moritz, and but yeah, of course, Kissinger was a huge, China fan, and wrote a huge book on it, and Klaus Schwab, is I think they hold another Davos in China or something, so anyway, I think his son-in-law might be Chinese or daughter-in-law or something. Anyway, so there are elements within this kind of group that are very open towards China, but there's also, particularly on the US government side, a lot of people that are, fighting the war of information and economics against China, and so yeah, there's that tends to be. There tends to be a lot of ideologues there. I mean, they like people with strong ideological opinions, I think, and there are people there who are, as I said, on the front line of the US kind of tech, economics, trade information war with Russia and China, and that's, when you look at the US officials that have come from the Security Department, the State Department, and from the National Security Council, and they are, they're all fighting that war. So yes, make of that what you will. But
another mainstay, David Petraeus. He seems to be a permanent fixture there. He of Iraq War, KBR fame, and there's a few others. Eric Schmidt, we mentioned before, that are kind of mainstays there. Peter Thiel on the tech and the investment side. So there's a few other characters that have popped up as well. You've tweeted up here. This gentleman, Oscar Stenstrom, seems to feature on a few of he's kind of doing a vanity picture here. Who is he?
Here we go. I mean, so he was there knocking around the hotel last year, the venue in Lisbon, and he's a former senior Swedish government official who was Sweden's chief negotiator for the accession to NATO. So when they did join NATO, his job was kind of done, and he left, and he's joined the Wallenberg office. Now, the Wallenbergs are the big Swedish billionaire family, massively influential Swedish family, and Marcus Wallenberg sits on the steering committee. His brother Jacob used to, they swapped, and they're hugely influential, gigantically wealthy, and he's gone to work for them as a senior advisor to Marcus Wallenberg. So he's just gone, okay, I'm leaving government, I'm going to take a big fat check. But what's interesting about him being here this year is we're thinking that it's looking like Sweden next year for Bilderberg, because I just don't know why he's here otherwise. So, this is the kind of, slim pickings that we have to make much of. But, if I was a betting man, all my money would go in on Sweden next year, which would make sense in terms of, they have just joined NATO. Bilderberg is absolutely enmeshed with NATO. I remember in Turin, up on top of a hotel, looking over at the big Fiat building where they'd set up a tent, where Stoltenberg was giving a talk, this is the head of NATO, just giving a speech to all of the people there. And just seeing it struck home how the power of Bilderberg, that they can bring the head of NATO in to just do a presentation, and so every Secretary General of NATO, I think, has gone to Bilderberg, and it's looking like Mark Rutte, or however you say it, the Dutch PM, is going to be taking over from Stoltenberg, and he's a Bilderberg regular. So it's kept in the family. I think they're going to keep NATO in the family.
Oh, he's got a job waiting for him at the Norwegian head of the Norwegian Central Bank. Apparently, he had to delay it a year because they couldn't find anybody that wanted the NATO job. But
right.
They might have found a taker there. Other people have been pining for that position. But this is interesting kind of problem that it presents U.S. politicians or people in office, and also British politicians, some of whom have gone to Bilderberg in the past. And in the U.S., that they would be in violation of the Logan Act. They're there meeting in secret, Chatham House rules, so can't talk about what they talked about. And in Britain, the ministerial code does have something to say about this. And so since that became a topic, I know you brought that up and others have brought that up in the past. And after you and the other independent media people started talking about that, you started seeing a little bit less attendance of elected officials. Have you noticed this? Because I have. And does it have anything to do with the fact that they had to think about it once it was exposed?
That is possible. And I have to say, they've not been very good at declaring their expenses, even now. But at some point, it is a boring piece of journalism that has to be done, which is simply to go through their transparency data or whatever declarations they make of their expenses and say, sorry, did you declare the flight and the et cetera for Bilderberg? Or because Bilderberg keep saying that people pay for their own travel and expenses, and I know damn well that's not true. So there's a very low level info war going on between the alternative media and Bilderberg itself, and it's occasionally little things happen, like Josh Friedman, who's here. He was one of the very few people that went to the previous one in Washington, the one before Lisbon. He got a photo of the King of Spain coming. You just got the light right through the car, little flash of light through the tinted window, and he got a nice little profile of the King of Spain, and it makes all the difference, I have to say. Just a little photo that Josh managed to get helps bed into people's minds, and it's totally true. And that's why this year particularly, they have tried so hard to keep the delegates away from cameras. Really, really hard. Harder this year, I'd say, than any year I've seen. We're getting almost nothing because they know that you can put the list out, but a list of names compared to a simple photograph of a minister, or a EU commissioner, it just crystallizes that the reality of their attendance in a particular way, and that's why they're so that's why they spent 3 hours putting up an extra row of shrubs and trees outside the hotel, anything to keep the cameras off their beloved guests, and it's again, I don't blame them, but it's frustrating for us, and it's also I think it's revealing of the power of journalism. They know that cameras are toxic to them because all that kind of sunlight is the great disinfectant or whatever it is. They know that's a problem for them. So they're no fan of the blogger and podcaster with a camera sitting outside trying to catch little photos. And it's why it's important that people turn up and do it. And keep an eye on Stockholm, everyone.
Interesting. Yeah, the Wallenberg family, arguably one of the big levers of control in Europe, investor AB. They own everything. They own things that people don't even know they own. It's a huge conglomerate, and the history that goes way back. Even there's also some allegations of, obviously with the Second World War.
That is really go digging there. That is really interesting stuff. Yes.
Well, the Nazis and collaboration. So I mean, that's an interesting. A lot of people don't know it. So it's the Marcus Wallenberg's coming out of the shadows a little bit there, and so Sweden's really into the European fold. So we're going to take your advice on that, Charlie. Keep an eye.
Well, don't go booking yet, but let's just see.
Sweden. But Josh Freeman, you mentioned, who's a regular at the Bilderberg meetings here. He took this video and posted it up on his X Twitter profile. I'll play this real quick, and it looks like a VIP chill out area that has to do with the hotel or something. Was this part of the Bilderberg venue?
That is. It's a little kind of not that luxurious kind of decking area out through the back of the lobby. The funny thing about this hotel, it isn't as. This is why a lot of people thought it wasn't going to be here.
Let's show this clip real quick.
Okay, okay, sure.
Comment on it. So Charlie, nice by maybe 3-star, 4-star standards in some markets, but it's not your typical Bilderberg fare, is it?
No, it's not. But I think that they like the fact that it's a very controllable space. There's not much around here. It's a kind of, it's just kind of some rich housing, and there's just not much here. It's a very easy to secure location, and it's got a massive conference hall. So I think it's got lots of pluses for them. And, there'll be some of the guests will think, well, my bathroom isn't as swanky as it should be. But I can see why they've gone for it. But, on the other hand, sometimes the guests kind of like to wander out and go to an art gallery, and there's just nothing around here. There's nothing like that. They're going to get in the coach, maybe go to the Prado. I don't know, but yeah, it's not a super luxurious hotel, but it's luxurious enough, I guess.
So here's another thing you tweeted out. You have to explain who this person is here. Looks like the chair of Banco Santander, Anna Botín. Did I pronounce that correctly?
I don't even really know. Let's go with that. Botan or something like that. She is a very, very powerful member of the international financial community. She's actually chair, of this Institute of International Finance, which is the most powerful global financial lobby group. She's also, a board member of Coca-Cola. She's brought another board member of Santander along this year, and she is the Spanish representative on the Bilderberg steering committee. So in the same way that Marcus Wallenberg is the Swedish guy, and some nations have more. I think the UK's got, is it two? I think it's Sir John Sawyers, who's a BP director, and Zanny Minton Beddoes, who's the editor-in-chief of the Economist. So anyway, she's the Spanish host. So this is her party. So she's putting it on, and it's highly likely, I don't know, that the bank itself is putting up some money. I know that if you look at the accounts that are public on of the British Bilderberg Association Limited, they've just become a private company as opposed to a charity, quite wisely. They've just got a big chunk of money from HSBC. So they, the business sector tends to sort of pick up the tab for this. So in Dresden, I think it was Airbus. It's like they pick up the tab for this kind of swanky event, and I think they do that because it's so great for them. This is someone like Anna Botín, who's, she's at the very top of financial lobbying in the world, and she's throwing a party to which all of these finance ministers and all these ministers and policymakers and EU commissioners and the head of the Eurogroup, etc., they're all coming along and they're all locked in, and it's what I would, if I was a billionaire bank boss, I would be holding Bilderberg.
Yeah.
So maybe it isn't going to happen for a few years, but watch this space.
So Madrid, Spain this year, perhaps Sweden next year. Ukraine also has a big presence there. NATO and Ukraine. I saw the foreign minister from Kiev, Dmitry Kuleba. He's there. So there's a lot of talk probably about the defense of Ukraine, or who knows, arming up Europe for a war against Russia. I mean, is these the types of conversations that would be happening, off stage or on stage? I don't know.
Well, I mean, the Allied Supreme Commander Europe is, he's like I think he's the second most senior military officer in NATO. So he's, absolutely, they're going to be focusing on this. And it's interesting that they called the session Ukraine and the World. It's like they're going, okay, you think it's just Ukraine? No. It's Ukraine and the world. It's got that little kind of unpleasant whiff of World War to it. So, I don't know, but certainly it's going to be, they've got the foreign minister there. I think he may have gone last year. They've got some Russian specialists there, and it's obviously going to be one of the big foreign policy discussions. They've got Russia as a separate session, but it's kind of, I imagine it will roll on. But anyway, so yeah, it's hard to know. Who knows what they'll be talking about, because they just don't tell us.
Trump supporters would be interested to know Stacey Abrams from Georgia, who ran for governor a few years ago, who's known as an electioneer, according to many Republicans in Georgia, one of the key swing states. Last time she appeared, I think, was 2019. I'm not sure, but prior to the 2020 election. So that's another interesting name there from the United States. And a lot of people credit her with turning Georgia. Now, maybe not for legal reasons, or there's accusations there, but suffice to say, Charlie, though there are people there, political activists, political operatives from the United States, representing a wing of the establishment. Interesting. What do you think about that?
You've also got the other, the other wing is there. They brought in a guy, Robert Lighthizer, who is the chair of the Center for American Trade. Now, he's on the board of the Trump Media Group, whatever it's called. He's a big Trump guy. And, they've got Nadia Shadlow on so Stacey Abrams is on the Bilderberg Steering Committee now. And Nadia Shadlow is on there, but she was Trump's deputy national security advisor and wrote the 2017 US kind of security policy position document. And so, there are people from they're quite careful, I think, to keep a kind of bilateral flavor to the talks, so that they don't just turn into one side or the other. And I remember being surprised. I actually got a little micro interview with the CEO of Ryanair, Michael O'Leary, the Irish guy, and this was just after Trump had been elected, and he was at the airport, and I pretty much caught him outside the doors with his suitcase, and I said, "So, how's Trump? How is Trump getting on for you? What's your take on Trump?" And I was expecting him. I don't know why. I was expecting him to say, "God, what Trump? Jesus, Donald Trump, whatever." He just went, "Yeah, no, good, yeah, but he's got some more to do." So there's no easy way to describe the politics of Bilderberg. The politics is one of bringing everyone in. Kind of, they worry about a few positions, a few foreign policy positions, a few financial positions, and the rest they can, who cares who you vote for?
Yeah, that's something to keep an eye on. Some of these sort of characters, how they're moving up in the ranks as well. And so just, appreciate you joining us, Charlie, for this. It's great to get your take on this. Obviously, you kind of been at the forefront. You're probably actually one of the first, I would say, persons to expose the Bilderberg Meeting in a major mainstream publication. Before that, it was pretty much suppressed. So you kind of created that breakout moment for talking about this topic globally, I think, with your work for The Guardian. And so is there going to be any other coverage in any other media outlets? We'll point people to your Guardian article as well. But is there any other coverage that we should keep an eye out for?
The Daily Mail are maybe doing it. I don't know. I hope they do, because they have a huge readership, and anything they would put out would be great. However, hopefully not. It won't be who are these lizards, but I think they tend to do actually a fairly good straight write up of the group, of the meeting. So I'm hopeful. At some point, I know this is late in the day, but maybe they will get something up there. I just wanted to say on the subject of bringing this subject into the mainstream, John Ronson did write about this like a decade before I ever turned up. So he was in Lisbon in 99, and hung out with Jim Tucker. And he published these kind of experiences in that book he did called Them. Is it They or Them? One of the, and so he was really one of the first people to even, to take any kind of a mainstream attitude and be a mainstream writer, and and hang out there with the alternative press. Unfortunately, he kind of focused a bit too much on Jim Tucker and not so much on the meeting. But still, he's to be certainly credited for getting in there early. And then, I'm just delighted when anyone with a camera turns up outside this place, So if any of your viewers, think, oh, do you know what? It would be a fun trip. It would be. And honestly, you've never seen anything like it. Once you see the security, vans and the drones and the helicopters, and it's quite an experience.
And you probably get good support from the alternative media cohort, and you guys look after each other.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a team effort. You help each other with photographs, and you're helping. And I know there's other people that couldn't be there, and you guys are basically helping feeding information, photographs to other journalists around the world. So you kind of created a kind of network that's been very effective in getting the information out each year. So I think that's something that is great. We spoke to Tony Gosling just yesterday, and he was giving some more insights and information. He said he couldn't be there this year, but he's in touch with you guys, and that's been great as well.
Yeah.
So it's good. Good call out, Charlie, to get other independent media personalities, journalists to get to Bilderberg cover. Go ahead, Charlie.
It is required. Get there. I mean, seriously, if you're like on the cusp, then think about doing it just as a kind of, as you say, a gift to the whole network of people that are interested in it, who need content, who want to put stuff up, pictures, interviews, anything. It's a mouth that needs feeding. And I realize this year it's slim pickings. It really is. And I'm apologizing on behalf of all of us here, but we'll do what we can.
No, and so I'm going to point people to Charlie Skelton's X Twitter feed. This is probably one of the best sources, all-around sources of information. Charlie's also aggregating other people's work as well on his feed, so you'll be able to get most of the information. Of course, the articles written by people like Charlie Skelton are going to give you really the best overall insight and analysis as to what's going on. Charlie Skelton coming to us from Madrid, Spain. Thank you very much.
It's lovely to be here. Nice to speak to you.
Thank you. And there he goes, ladies and gentlemen. That is Charlie Skelton. Fantastic segment. And we're pleased to be able to catch him on the fly in Spain to give us a little bit of an inside look of what's actually happening there at Bilderberg. Very important because, listen, these people will determine what's going to happen to the world, at least for the next 12 months and beyond. So it is your business to know. It is in your interest to know what's going on. So really pleased to be able to speak to Charlie, and earlier in the week with Tony Gosling and others too. Hopefully next week we'll link up with maybe another journalist or two to get a little more insight on this and how it fits in to the overall global matrix. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a short break with the network here with Alternate Current Radio Network. And when we come back, we'll do a final wrap-up overdrive segment and touch some of those important stories that we were talking about before. We'll see you in a few minutes.
For in the final analysis, we all inhabit this small planet, and we are all mortal.
Lately I've been watching the world gone mad. Brothers and sisters full to take a stand, to hate their fellow man, another man. Divide and conquer is the acronym plan. Distract the people, control the story. Don't believe your lying eyes, you know me. Corruption and lies. cruelty. People as commodity, cheer on war and atrocity. No accountability, perpetual impunity. Always have an enemy, the hell with all humanity. Stay in power, no matter what. Play with the doomsday clock. Turn a blind eye and gather your trust. Taking us to time just done. Stay in power, cash in the stars. Play with the doomsday clock. Turn a blind eye and join the cause. Pushing us to turn to dust. An empire of lies. History rhymes will turn to dust. Digital inmates scored on every move. Nowhere to hide, nothing to hold on to. Return to dust. As we turn to dust. As we turn to dust.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Sunday Wire. Again, I'm your host, Patrick Henningsen. This is episode 506 of this weekly omnibus news and analysis radio program brought to you here on the Alternate Current Radio Network. We're also streaming out live at 21stcenturywire.com. That is our mothership platform. And also on X, Rumble. I believe we've got streams going out on Facebook on our fan page for 21stcenturywire.com, and also, of course, on YouTube. Limited visibility on some of the main big tech platforms, but we have been privy to the Twitter files and other things where we've seen our names on the blacklists. So just saying, folks, that's real. It actually happens. If we were covering other content, I'm sure we'd get a lot more traction on those platforms. But unfortunately, because we've been doing this for a while, 21st Century Wire has been going since this platform since 2009, late 2009. So we've been kind of consistent, trying to stay on the cutting edge of a lot of important stories, especially in the realm of geopolitics, war, and peace. And because of that, you make some pretty powerful enemies, as well as a lot of great supporters. And we really appreciate the support that we've gotten on this platform. And big thank you to everybody that's donated in the last couple of weeks. We do have a donation option. Just go to the top of our X Twitter profile there at 21Wire. That's my account, my main account. Also, we have a 21st Century Wire account as well for the website. You'll see donate options there, different ways to support us. If you want to subscribe and become a member at 21wire.tv, that's how you can support us on a monthly basis. It's not expensive, but you'll be supporting content like this and some of the great conversations that we have. We've got a couple of other great guests lined up for the next Sunday Wire next week. And these are long form interviews, no commercial breaks, no interruptions. And as you can see, that conversation we had with a great journalist like Charlie Skelton, who is really, a trailblazer on this issue of Bilderberg. Really one of the most important journalists on this topic over the years. And we were able to get him and have a nice long form conversation, pretty relaxed, pretty candid, and through that able to get some different insights, I think, and give you a little bit of a different flavor than you're getting on other mainstream media outlets. I myself, very interested, of course, in politics, international politics. I actually have a master's degree in international relations and global security, so that helped to kind of inform me in recent years. I went back to school as a mature student, but it was a great experience. It helped to round out my understanding and, doing the dissertation as well, the research, the reading, the interviews that went along with that, and just the study of international institutions and relations helped me to navigate the sort of current landscape, if you will, of geopolitics. And we are at a precipice right now. And you saw that video during the break. That is from a band called Red Rumble. We'll put the link to that band and that track, Turn to Dust. Incredible band. And, we played that because it's so on point. Their track is so on point. And just, you can tell from the lyrics, and put the track, the text from the lyrics up on screen. So we're streaming out on some of these platforms where you can watch without audio until people opt in to listen, so they can see the lyrics there. Might pique their interest. But like Joseph Arthur and some of the other conscious artists and bands that we feature on the Sunday Wire, Red Rumble is definitely up there with this track. I mean, amazing work, great video, fantastic band. So really pleased, and we'll link to their Twitter profile as well. So do follow them, follow their work, YouTube channel, etc. Support that band by getting their track. That's one thing you can do as well. Support all these artists independently. Buy their music. Buy it for friends. Buy multiple copies if you have to. Make donations if they're available, because these people are important. Artists, we need artists to be able to distill down what's happening in the world and put it in a way that no extended volume of books and papers could possibly make sense of, where they can do it in 4 minutes in a single song or a poem or a painting or an illustration or a great political cartoon like Bob Moran from the UK, one of the great political cartoonists who's advanced a lot of insight and common sense and busted propaganda narratives just through the art of political cartoons. Artists can do this. Nobody else can. Gilad Atzmon, the great jazz musician, he's another great artist who's also active in the political arena as well, especially of recent with the situation in the Middle East with Gaza against the Israelis. Gilad's been a great voice. Hope to get him on the show again soon, actually, something we're working on behind the scenes. But that's what you're supporting when you support 21stcenturywire.com. We've got a great team. We've got some great writers, independent journalists who are contributors, including the great Freddie Ponton, who's just turned out to be incredible in terms of his independent research and journalism. Arnaud Devolay, some of these people we've had also on our programs as well. You guys are familiar with them. And hello to everybody in the 21st Century Wire chat room. Great to see you guys there. Sorry, we were off the last 2 weeks. One was because of travel. We couldn't get an episode mailed in. And the other is because of an injury. So we had a little bit of an injury situation last week, which I'm recovering from. It's not as mobile as I normally am, so you won't see me hiking up mountain peaks this week, but hopefully we're recovering from that. But I'm sorry that we weren't broadcasting last week, but here we are this week, and again, we got an exciting episode for next week and the following week as well. So those are booked, and amazing guests. I don't have to introduce them. You'll know them when you see them. But great topics as well. So thanks, Charlie Skelton, and Turn to Dust. You saw the video imagery in that music video. Take that very seriously. Now, while the world is focusing on Donald Trump, and make no mistake about it, the verdict that was rendered in New York, this was a politicized case. This is lawfare writ large. And as I'm trying to explain to some of my good liberal friends and family, colleagues, etc., that this level of lawfare doesn't even fly in banana republics anymore. Literally, there are third world tin pot dictatorships where they don't even engage in this level of lawfare that we've seen waged against the former president of the United States, Donald Trump. And my message is this, and I also appeal to the rhinos who are somewhat, have let's say, a confused and problematic relationship with the U.S. Constitution and the system of checks and balances. So here's a little civic lesson for the congressmen, senators that are all cheering and hoping that Donald Trump's going to get locked up after this absolute show trial. They had 7 years to bring a case like this against Trump, but they chose to stack them during an election year where he's the presumed nominee for the Republican Party. Is that not election interference? Of course. Imagine if Putin did it. Imagine if some other country did it, some country that the United States considers to be their enemy or their adversary. Imagine if they did this. They would get the third degree, wouldn't they? So we have a system of checks and balances in the U.S. It's important that these are not weaponized, especially the justice and the judiciary and law enforcement. Because if they are, this system of checks and balances is essential. The founding fathers of the United States constructed a brilliant foundational document, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, the U.S. Constitution, and a system of checks and balances that fits neatly into that framework. And that is to preserve the free competition of ideas. Ideas will lead to policy. And ultimately, that competition is settled at the ballot box. It's settled at the ballot box, but it's not settled through manipulating the framework of the U.S. Constitution or manipulating the system of checks and balances to adhere to whoever's in power at that particular time. It began with the gross abuse and distortion of the executive branch. This has been a cumulative process over successive administrations. Many constitutionalists and jurists, pundits, academics, scholars have warned about this for numerous administrations. As far as I could remember, as early as, I think in a big way it became more pronounced during the George W. Bush administration beginning in 2000. This accumulation of power in the executive branch post 9/11. We can talk about other executive abuses going right back 100 years or more. But it's always been a contentious topic, and for a good reason. Because that system of checks and balances, when you start to distort it, when you start to tinker with it, when you contort it to suit your political machinations, or as Lenin said, who and whom. All that matters is who and whom. Who's doing what to whom. Who has power and who doesn't. That's the Bolshevik mindset that creates these great purges, like these great purges we're seeing of the Labour Party by Keir Starmer in the UK is a good example. The weaponization of the anti-Semitism term in order to purge any potential, let's say, more left-leaning members of the Labour Party in Britain. The same thing they've done in the United States, not just with the anti-Semitism tool or device, but through right-wing extremism allegations, insurrection, January 6th, baseless allegations. All these things have been used and weaponized. Russiagate, impeachment 1, impeachment 2 of Trump. These were laying the groundwork for what you've seen here. Imagine all of the egregious war crimes that U.S. presidents and administrations have taken part of, crimes against humanity. The millions of people that have been killed through errant U.S. military misadventures and CIA coups, other illegal acts by U.S. intelligence and their allies, and not one charge is brought against anyone. Look at all that WikiLeaks exposed in Iraq and Afghanistan. Not even a slap on the wrist for anybody. No political leader, let alone any of the military command. They all walk. And the one time a U.S. president has been dragged into court and found guilty is over an alleged NDA hush payment to a porn star that they said was in violation of federal election regulations, but didn't occur during an election. Figure that one out. with a corrupt and partisan judge that is knee-deep in the Democratic donor class and his family as well. Conflicts of interests abound. So when you tinker with the system of checks and balances, when you weaponize and politicize the judiciary, law enforcement, the FBI, the courts, the executive branch, then you no longer have that free market of ideas, the competition, the free market of ideas and policies that would be settled at the ballot box. Instead, you don't want to allow certain people to run for office, so you try to execute them legally speaking, hopefully not literally, but that's been done before while they're in office multiple times in the United States. We don't like to talk about that. Of course, that's an uncomfortable subject. You can blame that on the Russians or Castro or whatever. Not talking about JFK only, McKinley, Ronald Reagan, etc. So you don't want to settle at the ballot box. You want to knock Trump out, as Joe Biden himself warned. So we're going to use all constitutional means. He said that over a year ago, to make sure that Trump doesn't run. So the party in power doesn't want the leading candidate in the opposition to run for office. So they're deploying all means necessary through federal courts, and they finally got them in a local New York court. You are playing with fire, because once you open this Pandora's box, once you open this door, anyone can go through that door now that the door is open. And whether it's this party or this administration, I guarantee it, if Republicans come into power, they will utilize the exact same tools against the Democrats or the left or whatever. Okay, we saw the exact same thing happen when the Democrats abused law enforcement, abused the system, weaponized the system against Trump supporters by claiming that they were overthrowing the government on January 6th. A laughable allegation, but everyone in the media parroted it. All the sanctimonious members of the House with their investigative committees. What we found was a lot of activity behind the scenes to create a crisis by leading Democrats in the House, by the FBI itself, with so many agent provocateurs on the ground during January 6th. They engineered a perfect storm to create a spectacle that they could say it was kind of the Reichstag fire moment for American politics. And to lock up how many thousands of people on federal charges when, in fact, some of them just trespassed, others just showed up to a rally. But being politically targeted, again, part of a process to knock out the opposition, i.e. the MAGA movement or Donald Trump. It doesn't matter if it's Trump or the MAGA movement or if it's a left-wing movement. It's the same process. And so what did the right do? When they got control of the House, now they're going after left-wing protesters, student protesters, protesting a genocide in Gaza, using the exact same tools, weaponizing the exact same powers with the media in tow as they did against J6 protesters, against Trump supporters after January 6th. They weaponizing, saying, oh, this is anti-Semitism, they're pro-Hamas rallies, total lies, total mischaracterization, completely overblowing something, totally mischaracterizing it, and then trying to pass legislation on the back of it to restrict the First Amendment. That's what the right did. They used the exact same tools that the left did post-January 6th, and even before that, of course. Just targeting people, the DOJ and the FBI, targeting political opposition, criminalizing everything and anyone who seem to be connected or in the Trump orbit. And you think once that door is open, that Republicans, when they get into power, or conservatives, are not going to take advantage of that to exact revenge, to, let's say, balance out the scales, at least in their mind, to balance out the political scales, to correct the abuses of the previous administration or government in power or cabal. Of course they're going to do it. And you can't cry fascism. Well, you will, but you can't just sit there and cry fascism when you yourself were enacting fascist policies and taking fascist hardcore action against your to crush your political opposition. That's what happened. It's happening again and again and again. Somebody needs to hit the brakes. Then this is the problem that we face right now in the United States, but also in Europe, is a lack of restraint when it comes to this type of mindless escalation, be it political or military. And while all this is happening, while the Trump verdict was rendered this past week, on the same day, a story is leaked to Politico that Joe Biden secretly gives the green light to use U.S. weapons to hit targets inside Russia, deep inside Russia, via Ukraine. So encouraging the Ukrainians to use U.S. weapons to hit targets inside Russia, giving them the green light, when he's been saying for months, that's a red line. We don't want to do that. That's been the U.S. public policy, and this is leaked by Politico. This should scare everybody. That's the real story. That's the real news. People should be asking Donald Trump, instead of this this circus sideshow in New York, people should be asking Donald Trump what his position on this is, because this affects not just everybody in America, but globally. This is actually important. This is a consequential story. This is what we need to raise the conversation to that level, Republicans and Democrats and independents in the United States. And that's not happening. And that's very worrying, especially considering with the US's support targeting information and military support, Ukraine has hit a Russian early warning nuclear radar station on Russian territory. Did you hear about that? Are they screaming about that? Are there panels about this on CNN and Fox over the last 3 days? No, there's none. I'm telling you this. Other people have mentioned it, are talking about it. Scott Ritter's talking about it. Tony Gosling, we spoke to earlier in the week, he's talking about it. Other independent journalists are talking about it. You don't hear very much about it from the mainstream. Is it because it's not important, or is it because they don't care, or because you and I and everybody are being gaslit by this corrupt system? And it seems like it's the latter. So if we're being gaslit about something that has a direct path to a nuclear confrontation between the West and Russia, we're being gaslit not to see that, not to talk about it, not to get official comment right now, to preempt, to basically get us off this death spiral. That's not happening. So is that because our elected leaders and those in power are planning for war? Is this why the gaslighting is so pervasive right now? Because it's obvious what's happening. I see it. Other people who are awake and sane see it. Many of you, of course, if you're listening and watching this program, you see it. You absolutely see it. But the public isn't, they're not prioritizing it. And it comes down to priorities. The media decide what is a priority. And apparently World War III and the annihilation of most of Western civilization and beyond is a low priority for the establishment. So what good is this establishment? What good is this media, this political class, if they can't even prioritize things, important things? Meanwhile, they're all getting rich off the policies that are driving us into perhaps one of the biggest train wrecks in history. They're just thinking about their careers, their shareholder dividends with the military-industrial complex array of companies, the S&P 500, etc. That's what they care about. Nancy Pelosi's just looking at her stock portfolio, saying, oh, we're up this week. Fantastic. Ship the bombs. not hyperbolic. That's the way it is. So anyway, we're throwing this out there to get people talking about it, and we better get talking about it quick. I will be talking more about this and putting up some more stuff on our social media feeds, but it's kind of important. I think it is anyway. I know you do too. Let's try to convince more people that, yes, this is important. Listen, we're going to wrap this up. And again, we appreciate Charlie Skelton. Follow Charlie on X, Twitter. He's a great journalist. His coverage on Bilderberg is epic, and he's always on point, and great to have him on the program as well. Got another special guest lined up for next week. We're going to be reviewing a very important book that's doing very well right now in terms of book sales. One of the best sellers on Amazon. We'll be talking to the author. It'll be a surprise. You'll be pleasantly surprised when you see them on the program next week. Anyway, that's all we got time for today. Take care, you guys. It's been great. Thank you for joining us on the Sunday Wire. Support 21st Century Wire. Support this platform and the Alternate Current Radio Network as well. Great independent radio network here. And I will see you guys during the week. We'll catch you on the TNT live streams Monday to Friday as well. And we'll see you next Sunday here on the Sunday Wire. All the best, ladies and gentlemen. Take care.
Digital images and digital lies cut out their heart along with
their supplies. The propaganda leads to dehumanize our fellow humans and silence their cries. Ceasefire now. Ceasefire now. Ceasefire now in Gaza somehow. Without equality, there will always be war. We have all the history to see how it's happened before. Travel as equals, equality for all, or else mankind will surely fall. Ceasefire now. Ceasefire now. Ceasefire now in Gaza somehow. Cause this might be the last time to raise a hand about who we are. What's this say about who we are? This might be the last time to raise a hand about who we are. What's this say about who we
Supervised contact. They watch our every move. They examine our togetherness like we've got something to prove. I've looked behind your eyes. I've seen the sadness you hide. I've looked into your eyes. I've seen the tears that you've cried. No, I won't get used to these chains. No, I won't get used to these chains. In the legal arena, upset theaters are staged. She moves in circles. Her cruel games cause delays. From the questions you ask me, like why can't you come home tonight? the moment you hold me is the shortest hour of my life. No, I won't get used to these chains. They say I've got to be careful with what I say. Their conspiracy of silence. They think the truth will lead you astray. They say that they're here for you, but they never listen to what you say. They've built walls between us. I will walk through walls to break these chains. No, I won't get used to these chains. No, I won't get used to these chains.